If you're here, this is all about how to stand out and how to get hired. And so for our agenda today, we're going to cover quite a bit. First, we're going to start off with evaluating your job search goals and the obstacles that you're up against. Then we're going to dive into what's working. We're going to look at some different client success insights within the job search. And then we're going to take a look at some of the hiring insights, how managers decide who to hire. And then from there, we're going to explore some of these non-traditional roles, industry roles, as well as remote roles. And then we're going to go through our framework and our strategy of helping get pharmacists hired. And then we really appreciate all the questions that were submitted to us. So we've saved some special questions for the end of this session that we're going to dive into. And then if you stay to the very, very end, one of our best free tools that we've released, it's called our Career Path RX. We'll explain that a little bit later in today's presentation, but you will get exclusive access to that. So your three speakers today, we have Rachel Ronsick, we have Kurt Hines, and we have myself. I'm Mike Rush. And I'll just do a brief introduction today. So I am the National Director here at Pharmacy Career Coach, 14 plus years of experience with hiring, coaching, recruiting, mentoring. I feel like I've done a little bit of everything. And my one claim to fame is that I started one of the biggest groups there on LinkedIn. It's called Pharmacists and Pharmacy Jobs. I'm sure some of you are in it, but we're at 66,000 plus members. We started back in 2010, and right now, I took the toll today, and it's 66,426 members. So it's really grown over the years. And then we also have Kurt Hines joining us. So he is the founder and CEO here at Pharmacy Career Coach. Many years ago, he started off and built one of the nation's largest staffing agencies that was pharmacy specific. And then he founded Pharmacy Career Coach, where every time we have people that are looking to develop their career, he's out there finding the best coaches, the best writers, and really building the team and pushing everything that we're helping out with. And then our very special guest today. So we have Rachel Ronsick. She's currently an MSL. She's working at Chiesi, and she used to work as a clinical pharmacist. She was at Valley Presbyterian in St. Vincent. She is one of our head mentors here at Pharmacy Career Coach, so we're very excited to have her today. Her fun fact, she's also an actress as well as a screenwriter, and her extra fun fact is that she actually portrayed a child kidnapper on the TV show Criminal Minds. You get a star in your presence tonight. So you'll be excited to hear from her a little bit later. And then the reason we do all of this, and we've continued to do this, at this point, we've helped over 2,500 pharmacists throughout the nation. And it really goes a lot further than that. We're able to not only touch the careers, but the lives, the families, the work-life balance, everything that goes into your career. And so we're just proud to continue that and continue to help others. And so with that, I'm going to tee it up to Kurt Hines, who's going to take you through a lot of great information and continue the journey. I'll jump in the chat, so feel free to continue to join in. But yeah, take it away, Kurt.
All right. Thank you, Mike, very much. Great. So basically, yeah, we thank you so much for taking your valuable time and spending it with us today. And first of all, we thought it'd be really good to just really know who's our audience, so who you are. And based on those of you that actually took the time to fill out that survey that we had shared with you, 98% of you are looking for a job either passively or actively. And meanwhile, about 85% of you are looking to actually explore different career paths, different types of practice settings outside of where you're working now or in the past. And meanwhile, so 100%, so we know everybody that's here at some level is really interested in overall just improving, your job search skills. And really, like, the bottom line here is that we know that the real reason you're here, the real reason is that you really just want a more fulfilling position in pharmacy. And this, for us, the input that you provided, this has really been our guiding light in terms of the content that we're going to be presenting with you here soon. And just to jump a little bit more into, your job or your career and why it really matters, we know that a job is a lot more than just a job. So we spend, over the course of a year, if you're working full time, you're spending about a quarter of your time at work. And then even more, some of you I know are commuting as well. And so it's such a big piece of your time. And so it's really important, again, to have a role, have a job that you really do enjoy and you have fulfillment. And so furthermore, your job, that really dictates that work-life balance that you have. It also influences your overall stress levels, your happiness. Your job is how you make your money, so your financial stability, and also your identity. A big part of it is the type of your work and what you do is super critical component there. And then your self-worth and your confidence. And then also it's really that vehicle for a lot of you to make that meaningful impact. So we know being a pharmacist, most pharmacists enter the profession to really make a positive impact, to help people. And so it's also just really important that if that's why you entered the profession, that you're able to achieve that. And then the other component, the last thing, I know there's a lot more, but it's you've already made a huge investment. So between the dollar amount to become a pharmacist, the schooling, that wasn't cheap, but all the time that you spent in pharmacy school, all the time that you spent with your continuing education, all the other trainings that you've gone through. So there's just a lot that has gone into this moment. And so when it comes to the importance of having a role, doing something that you really enjoy and love, it's so important for you. And so a closer look at those that are here tonight is, so about 40 have a background primarily in retail, about 18% hospital, about 30 pharma, and then we have long-term care, specialty, and then some other settings. But again, I think it's just really nice to see who else is on this call with you, so you get a good sense. And then in terms of your primary goals, this is always interesting to see what people really want to do with their career. And so 36% had shared that working remotely is the primary goal in terms of what they want to do with their career. And not a big surprise there, especially with COVID. That certainly shifted a lot of things and really opened up a lot of opportunities there. And then that was followed by non-traditional positions. So really jobs outside of retail and hospital settings. And then pharma, past few years, we've just seen a lot of interest in this type of role, just like, Rachel herself, so she made the transition into industry as well. Meanwhile, about 15% of you were interested in really just staying in the same area of pharmacy, but changing companies or ascending into a leadership position. And then in terms of what was really standing in between you and then your career goals, so there's just a lot of factors. It's actually pretty well evenly distributed. So it's anything from my resume is not really standing out. It's hard to find the right kind of job openings online, uncertainty about what other roles I'm qualified for, general low confidence in interviewing skills, or just not really having the robust network that you need. And meanwhile, about 30% of you had said it was just a mix of different factors. So anyways, this is all good, and we'll be covering this here as we dive in. In terms of the primary area where you really needed guidance, about 40% said about everything, which is again good. So we'll cover all these aspects, but yeah, finding jobs, interviewing strategies, resume, LinkedIn, networking. So again, this is really just designed so it's nice so that you can really see what everyone else is really struggling at as well. And so you could realize that we're all pretty similar here, what we want to be improving on. From here, the good news is this is exactly what we do. So our whole business and our whole mission is to help pharmacists really navigate the path. So wherever you are to the endpoint, which is finding a more fulfilling position. And so we got the roadmap for your journey. So that's what we're going to be diving into here. And to do so, what we're going to be looking at now is actually, because you and our clients are very much similar, so we're going to be able to dive into what actually worked for them. So we're going to go ahead and show you that now. And that way, ultimately, you can be hired like this image here. So in terms of the outcome, so we keep all the data on who we're working with, what their practice setting is that they primarily have experience in, what their career goal is, and then ultimately the kind of job that they got. And so this is just a print screen of this, some of our clients from this past year. But in terms of where our clients got hired, so this is just a pie chart that just shows you all the various types of positions, anything from nuclear all the way to managed care, industry, governmental roles, hospital, you name it. A lot of different types of positions we've helped clients in. In terms of how our clients found their job, so after everyone gets hired that we work with, we always ask, okay, so what was the actual source of the job? And I find this to be really interesting. And so when it came down to the actual job that they accepted, so about 48% of our clientele found their job through networking. So networking to us, that could be through LinkedIn networking. This could be meeting people at pharmacy events or conferences. So anything from a digital to old school person-to-person networking, about 48% of them got their breakthrough through that. So obviously that's extremely critical for you. So if you're not networking as part of your job search, certainly make that a priority. Other sources are more traditional. So in terms of job board aggregators, so this would be companies like Indeed, Glassdoor, things like that, where you go to one website and they have all different types of jobs from all different types of companies. So about a quarter of our clients ultimately found their jobs from there. Meanwhile, about 16% found the job directly from the company job boards. About 9% were directly recruited, and then 3% used recruiting agencies. So very interesting insights there. In terms of when we're working with pharmacists to help them on their paths, in terms of what actually they help them the most. So again, this was something that was really evenly divided, but having direct mentorship or guidance. So that's where, like Rachel, you'll meet her here soon. But so mentorship was a huge component of that. The resume was also a large aspect. Cover letter, job search strategy, interview preparation was the largest component of that, and then the networking. And then when we look at the journeys and the paths of our clientele, so this is where they started and where they ended. And again, this is really helpful just to see. So if you're, for instance, and I'll take a closer look. So if you're in retail, and we know a lot of you on this call are in retail, a lot of times we hear, hey, I just don't really know if I'm actually qualified for any of these other areas of pharmacy. And so this is actually real data from last year where our retail pharmacists ended up getting jobs. So you can see here a huge amount of them got into managed care. Hospital was also really popular. Industry as well is about 19%. Government, behavioral health, long-term care, some of these other areas too. But the real takeaway here is don't limit yourself. There's a lot of really good options out there, even if your experience is limited to retail. And then our hospital-based clientele. So this was also really interesting to us is to see this is that so about 67% of all of our hospital pharmacists made that transition from hospitals practice setting into industry. And industry, of course, like it could be anything from MSL to medical information. There's so many different opportunities within there, but about 67% made the pivot into industry. Meanwhile, about 17% went into managed care, and then about 17% stayed within the hospital settings, but just changed employers and roles. And then now taking a look here at the hiring managers. And again, what we wanted to do, the purpose of this whole call and this Zoom session was really just lift the curtain up and really show you what makes a difference, what hiring managers are telling us, what our own clients are telling us and what we're seeing, and try to give you like real data to really help you really get an understanding of what you need to focus in on when you pursue your job search this year. So now we're going to just jump in here and I'm just going to go over some really interesting findings that we got from the hiring managers. And so all the hiring managers, so they're all director level pharmacy supervisors. So they're coming from industry, hospitals, retail, all different pharmacy practice settings. So this is like a really wide swath of people. But in terms of so we asked them the top sort of candidate selection factor. So when they're looking at candidates to interview, what is really that top and most important thing? And so it's having that past experience, so not a big surprise there. But also, about 25% said it was transferable or relevant skills. And so this is really good for those of you that do want to make that pivot or transition that don't necessarily have that prior experience in industry or hospital or whatever it might be. But there are a lot of good transferable skills that you do have that would directly relate to those types of positions. So those are definitely, that's half of it right there. And then references and referrals. So that's also a hugely important component there. And then, then we get into things like your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, and certifications. But so these aspects here are the real standouts on what you should really be focusing in on when you're looking at making a change in your job. Candidate sudden death. So sudden death to us just means that, if you do any of these things and you're a candidate, so in the application process, if you do these, the hiring manager would disqualify you. And so this is really important for those that are actively applying right now. So if you're making any of these mistakes, there's a probability here that you may get passed on. And so what you want to do is not do any of these things. So let's take a look at these together here. Poor presentation or typos. And so that would be on your resume, having any kind of grammatical errors, spelling errors, whatever it might be. Resume presentation, lack of relevant experience, lack of qualifications or skills, generic resume or cover letter. That one comes up a lot. Is we hear a lot of our hiring managers that we talk with, they really say that's a pet peeve, is when a generic resume is used for their job. If you have just a retail background and you're applying for a hospital position and you're using the same resume for your retail jobs and your hospital jobs, that's not a good thing. So you really want to try to cater it as much as you can to make it specific to the actual job. Incomplete or inaccurate information. So that was another big component here. So again, you really want to make sure that you're avoiding all of these if you can. This was a really interesting piece of data that we had here, which is referrals are crucial. So we always hear that make a big impact, but again, it's really nice to see this information directly from the hiring managers. And as we can see here, so everyone could admit that at some level, referrals really do matter. So it's either somewhat critical to extremely critical. So the takeaway here is to do everything you can really to get referred into different companies. This is a huge part of our strategy over here at Pharmacy Career Coach is who do we know within these organizations, these companies? How can we get referred into these different roles? And we've talked about this in the past, is a lot of companies have a policy whereby they actually have to interview you if you are referred into the position. So if you don't necessarily have the best background or experience, but you get a strong referral, you at least can have an opportunity to interview and an opportunity to potentially get the job. And then during the actual interview evaluation process, so we had asked the hiring managers to really rank what they saw as the most important factors, what they were really looking for during the interview phase. And so number one was ability to problem solve. Number two is teamwork. Number three was communication skills. And then 4 was enthusiasm. 5, leadership potential. And then 6, the very last one, was specific experience. So again, really good things to know, because these are all things that you can really work on when you're preparing for your interview. So you could speak to these specific attributes that you have. And then in terms of the red flag, so these are things that, not quite sudden death, but things that the interviewers are looking for, and things that you really want to make sure that you're avoiding is, so the communication skills, so not having good communication skills, so inconsistencies in your responses during the interview, negative comments about past employers. We hear about this a lot, is so it's whatever you don't, no matter how bad your experience was or your coworkers were, don't ever talk negatively about them. Lack of knowledge about the pharmacy or the specific role. This is really common. We hear this from hiring managers, especially in industry, where a lot of times candidates that are applying don't necessarily know what the function of what an MSL really does, things like that. So it's really important to know that role. Inadequate answers to technical questions, lack of enthusiasm or interest. But again, so these are red flags. So these are, again, are part of things that you really want to make sure that before your interview, You want to make sure that you're prepared and that you do your homework for the role and you bring that level of enthusiasm to the positions. And we had asked hiring managers how often they actually hire the best candidate on paper. So really asking on paper, so you have someone that has all of the experiences and certifications, how often do you actually hire that candidate? And again, this was really interesting because you might think always we would always hire the person that's most qualified on paper, but it was actually sometimes. So again, never or rarely, there's 0% here. But so again, this is a takeaway that if you do your homework, if you interview really well, and you put yourself in the best light possible, you still have a chance. And so that's something where we always are working with our clients on, is just, even though you're not the best on paper, we have so many different aspects that we can work on to make sure that you stand out as a candidate and ultimately have a higher opportunity of getting an offer. And we see it all the time. In terms of the outlook for their different pharmacy departments, this was good news as well, is that so in general, we saw that about 47% of the hiring managers, so they're growing. So we saw some groups where they're adding 50 to 100 different pharmacists to their teams. None of them are retracting. So that's a really good thing to see. A lot of them as well, we're going to be staying about the same. So anyway, so overall pulse on the future and growth and hiring outlook, we got positive feedback. So I'll take that any day. And then in terms of kind of future proofing your skill set, we just asked in general, and again, the hiring managers come from all different areas of pharmacy, but in general, the skills that they saw increased demand was so clinical expertise, digital and technology skills, specialized knowledge, sales, so more like customer facing experience and things like that. So again, the real takeaway here is to really future-proof your skill set, is definitely invest in your continued education. Make sure you're staying up to date with the latest innovations. Obviously, AI, that's a whole nother talk we should probably be giving here soon, Mike, honestly, but there's just a lot of change happening. And so you just don't want to be left behind. You really want to make sure that you're learning more, expanding your knowledge. And if you do those things, you're going to be fine no matter what happens here. Some of the top takeaways that we have would be from the hiring managers was, so always make sure you're using a personalized cover letter and resume with your application, even though it takes extra time. Hiring managers know if it's just a generic resume. Networking with the company and representatives on LinkedIn that you're interested in. Dress professionally. This came up a couple times as well. So just dress professionally for the interviews, even if it is a remote-based position. The other thing that came up a couple times too was to make sure you test your computer equipment before your interview. We've heard a lot of horror stories out there where the Zoom crashed or whatever, there's a software update, it didn't happen, I wasn't able to get on my interview. So just make sure you do all that stuff beforehand so you can have a real smooth and seamless interview. And then I talked about this earlier, which is avoiding negative comments about your past employer, coworkers. And then the other thing as well that someone had suggested is just take the extra time and send that handwritten thank you note after your interviews. In an increasingly technology-driven world, old school handwritten thank you notes really do stand out. And ultimately, that's what this is about, is like standing out as a candidate, showing that you really care about the position. And so it's just a really nice thing that you can do to do that. All right, so now what we're going to do with that information. So now we're going to make this pivot into just focusing in on the type of positions that you all said that you were most interested in. And so we have the broad categories of remote, non-traditional, industry, and pharma. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Rachel.
Thanks so much, Kurt. Welcome, everybody. This has been, I hope you found it as fascinating as I have, just all of this data. I think us as pharmacists, we love our data. And I thought it was really interesting, and it really reflects a lot of what I see happen with my clients. It used to be, you could just say you're a pharmacist and you will get a job. And I think probably many of you have realized it's just not that simple anymore, that it's become a really competitive landscape. But at the same time, it's become a much more varied landscape and much more exciting for the opportunity to transition into other roles. And I think there are some clients that we have that know exactly the type of role they would want, but they just haven't had any success breaking into that area. And that might be helping people with their interview skills, their resume, their cover letter, their networking, as Kurt showed, how people have found their jobs. It's surprising. And I know many people, myself included, sometimes hear networking and you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to do it. So what is it? What is LinkedIn? I've never used it. It used to be your friend would get you a job somewhere, your friend at some other hospital. But now you really have to help yourself stand out and point out your specific skills. And so for our clients that we have, that I have, that know what they want, it's really about just tailoring exactly what they're looking for and then working on those teachable skills so that you can have confidence when you interact with people, including in the interview. But then there are people that we get, a lot of people that we get who don't exactly know what they want. They just know that they don't want to do what they're doing now, or they've gotten everything out of what they can in their current career path. So some of these roles here, if you want to go to the next slide, these are just some ideas that different roles that we've helped people get positions for, some things that you may never even thought about as an opportunity. And I will, just to step back for a second, one of the things that's really important is learning how to market yourself and your transferable skills. And I'm always, it's always impressive to me when I work with a client how much we all tend to downplay our skills and or pigeonhole ourselves. And so many of your skills, I know a lot of people come in from retail saying, I don't have any of these skills. And I guarantee you do. You just don't know how to present them. But no one has showed you, hey, this skill translates to this skill in this other career path. And so that's our job, is working with you to help you understand that you actually do have a lot of skills that make you really marketable. And it's just a matter of highlighting those. So some of these areas include medication therapy management. So that's working with individual patients, counseling them on their diabetes medications. This is driven by Medicare Part D, that all their patients are required to have access to medication therapy management. So there are health insurance companies that do this directly working for them. Some of them farm that out to third parties that do MTM. There's consulting MTM. So MTM is a pretty broad range, but it does generally involve working one-on-one with patients. Another thing I'm going to ask you as I go through these rules, be honest with yourself about the type of job that you want. You're thinking about making a pivot. And if you are somebody, I have a client now who's, I am done working with patients. I don't want to talk to patients anymore. And there's no reason to feel bad about that. There are so many jobs you could get within pharmacy that don't involve direct patient care. And if you've had your fill of it, like, just be honest with yourself, and there's no shame to deciding that you want to work within a different space. So just being honest with the type of job that you want. Prior authorization, that is working with insurance companies to look if, I'm sure as many of you do work in retail, you understand a lot of the time you're the ones dealing with prior authorization requests. And just being on the other side of that, you can be everywhere from dealing with individual patient calls to helping set the parameters, the step edits, working within the insurance company to decide what your prior authorization criteria are going to be. There's even companies that specialize in managing an insurance company's prior authorization criteria. I have a client who works in that space right now. So there's so many niches within these. Remote order entry, that's processing prescriptions remotely from home. A medical writer could be anything from working in medical journalism to designing medical education, CME type activities. There's medical marketing, there's publications, research documents, regulatory writing. So medical writing is a very large field in and of itself. Population health pharmacist, that's somebody who's going to take a large amount of data and translate that into a broad population and into something that ties the population together. So oftentimes this is what has been a clinical manager in an organization. So they've taken their data and they're making decisions that affect a population in their health center. So it's not working on one like medication therapy management. So if you're somebody who likes data or translating large amount of data, coupling it with clinical guidelines to make value-based decisions, that's now a term that we hear a lot as population health pharmacists. Clinical account manager and advisor, that can be a broad range of things. You would be working within an institution, it could be with an insurer, on helping to guide therapy. Does often have a cost component that you're looking at. Or it could be the broad range of medication management in the medication therapy management, that like, what do you want to drive as an organization? You're going to drive better diabetes care because you've seen worse outcomes in that. So that could be a clinical account manager or an advisor. Could also be working for a drug, that could be a pharma position as well. So there's some gradients in that. Formulary pharmacist, you're managing sometimes the pharmacy and therapeutics committee. Again, it's similar to a population health pharmacist in that you're looking at aggregate data and making decisions based on that, and sometimes going back and evaluating what was the impact of that decision, that formulary change. So it's not just making the formulary change or what's the best for the patients and for the system. It's also going back and looking at what was the impact of what we did. So that's part of the formulary pharmacist role. So this was one of my clients, Cirilla. She landed a dream job. And it was hard. She was coming from a retail background and she really wanted a remote position, and she wanted something that involved taking care of patients. So she still wanted to be part of that, the patient care paradigm, that the direct patient care paradigm. So it took her a while to find. So sometimes you have to just be patient, waiting for the right job to come along, but you have to be prepared when it does. When this position came along, she was very prepared. We knew exactly what she was looking for. We were able to tailor her resume and cover letter so that it was exactly set her up to show that she is just the right person for this job. And it was very exciting. When I get a call from a client, they got the job, I feel like I got the job. So I'm still very excited about Cirilla's position. And she really needed something. She had some personal family things that she needed to be home for, and she was having high stress in her retail position, and she wanted something where she could get more meaning and out of the comfort of her home, and she ended up finding it, which was really exciting. And then within the industry, there are so many areas of industry. So there's pharmaceutical sales. So if you really love sales, that's definitely an avenue. I think that's the first thing people think of in industry, and they're like, oh, I don't want to do sales. So if you want sales, definitely there are opportunities for you, but there's so many more opportunities even outside of sales. As was mentioned, I'm a medical science liaison and MSL. So my role is working with key opinion leaders and stakeholders in our therapeutic area, making sure they have the information that they need, partnering on research collaborations, grant requests, facilitating education. Basically, we don't have, as an MSL, you're not involved with any sales. You're there to support the medical, you're a field-based medical affairs representative. If there's medication information requests that come in that are beyond the scope of the medical information departments, those off-label questions, we can talk about that legally. We're allowed to talk about solicited off-label medication related questions. And that's always really interesting to get to talk about that. You are usually working in a specific therapeutic area as an MSL. That's something we can talk about more if you'd like. Pharmacovigilance, so that's drug safety, that's reporting medication safety incidences. So let's see, our community medical liaison. I'm not quite sure about sorry, I'm just looking at the question in the chat. A community, is that you in regards to patient management, a patient liaison? I've heard that is a position that pharmacists can apply for. It's a lot of times they look at nurses, and I will say that the pay for a patient liaison is usually in a nursing range, and so it might be lower than, but it could be a great entry into an industry position if it's something you're passionate about and you mind maybe the pay cut with the patient liaison role. But I can talk more about that if I didn't answer your question. So pharmacovigilance, drug companies have their own pharmacovigilance departments. They also contract that out to CROs, so contract research organizations. Sometimes they'll have a third party managing their 1-800 number that patients or providers can call to report a drug safety concern, and then that will get triaged over to the pharmacovigilance team, and they will track everything from how was the product stored, how was it administered. So they get into the weeds about what happened in a particular drug safety issue. So if you really are detail oriented and you like a little investigation, pharmacovigilance could be for you. Regulatory affairs, that is obviously everything with pharmaceutical laws and regulations, especially if you're working for a company that has recently brought something to market or is preparing to bring something to market. There's a lot in the regulatory affairs area, but compliance is also a big part of that. So if you're somebody who really likes checking boxes and making sure people are following the rules and making sure your company, that you want to hold your company to the best standard you can, then regulatory affairs can be a great place. Medical communication and medical writing, again, those go together. Depending on medical communication could involve working as medical information. So typically you'll have a company, a large pharmaceutical company will outsource their 1-800 number for medical information. And then those people that work in those areas will typically have a script, or they have certain limited things that they can answer. And if it goes beyond that, they'll triage it to the company's internal medical information team, and where they can speak a little bit more broadly about, they have more ability to speak towards a specific question. However, they can't speak on off-label. So if it's off-label, then usually that question is then triaged to somebody like myself, an MSL, who is legally allowed to speak on off-label indications. So that's in communication and information. And again, medical writing could be anything from designing CME and writing articles for different organizations. You click on even if you go to whoever your insurance company is that provides your health insurance, they'll have an article about heart health. There's somebody that wrote that, and it's somebody with a healthcare background. So it could definitely be a pharmacist doing that. Clinical research, sometimes that can be dependent on where you live, how many clinical research organizations are around you, or what access you have, but there's actually a lot more than people realize. So I don't think if you don't live in the hub of research, New Jersey or Triangle Park, North Carolina, there are so many organizations and areas in the country that do research. And I myself worked at a contract research organization doing frontline clinical trial management, and it was really interesting. Market access can be anything from making sure patients have access to the newest medication. It can be making sure, and you do that in a variety of ways, oftentimes working with insurance plans to make sure that your medication is made available to their patient population. It can also, in tandem with market access, is health economic outcomes research. So that's if you're really into data, both market access and healthcare economics outcomes research pharmacists are taking large amounts of data and boiling it down and tailoring it for particular communities or organizations and helping them understand the best way that a medication can be used in their patient population. So Rainey broke into industry. She got an MSL job, came from a hospital system. That was my path as well. That's one of many paths that you can make into an MSL role. And the thing with an MSL role is it's very specific therapeutic areas. And I know people can get frustrated when they're trying to look for MSL jobs because a lot of times this has experience required. But at PCC, we can help show that you actually do have the background that is needed for certain MSL roles. And there's a lot you can do with networking to get into those back doors of meeting with people. And like Kurt showed in the survey, that referrals make a big difference, and they can even weight more than experience. Don't count yourself out from anything because you don't have the experience. Some more non-traditional roles that includes the remote and industry roles of formulary pharmacists, which I mentioned, and that can be formulary pharmacists work on health plan sides, and they also work inside of the hospitals. That can be either side of that, outpatient, inpatient. Informatics pharmacists, such a growing field. It can be a little challenging to break into. There are companies like Epic and Cerner and companies that have the software that you use at work every day. There are pharmacists involved in the building of that. It's amazing how many people we don't know that we know. So there are contacts to be had everywhere. Pharmacy startups, there's so many enterprising people out there that have started a lot of interesting products, such as something like Aspen RX for consulting from home, and the way that through the app and links you up with patients to do that might depend on where you live, or something unique, something specific that you're interested in doing. Academia is an option. I know some people think if I didn't go right into academia out of pharmacy school and do a fellowship, I'll never get an academia position. There are so many different academia positions and so many non-tenured track positions, clinical faculty. They're looking for outpatient pharmacists. There's so many different ways to get your foot in the door with academia. So don't think that because you've been a pharmacist somewhere for 15 years and you didn't do anything an academic, so to speak, that isn't a path. It definitely could be a path for you. Pharmacogenomics, very specialized area. There's different courses that you can take to get, it's hard to, that's one area that's hard to get your foot in without experience, but there are a lot of courses you can take. And again, there's a lot you can do through networking to find out what you need to know to get your foot in that door. So networking can lead you down the path. If you talk to somebody, they're like, oh, you should take this course. We always hire people that have this on their resume. Just this little bits of information that, again, that help you stand out. Consultant pharmacist, that can be arranged from anything coming in and advising long-term care facilities, mail order program, specialty pharmacy, that is the whole range of consultant pharmacy. Home infusion pharmacists, if you really like managing TPNs, vancomycin levels, gentamicin, a lot of that is actually because, like Kurt said about COVID, they were able to make a lot of these roles remote that never were remote before. So there's a lot more opportunities now than there used to be. And then poison control is a very niche field, but again, something you can do from home. We have Kim C here, who was able to get a job making more money doing something she was much more excited about doing, coming from a retail background and manager in a retail setting. And she was able to transition into a medication, advanced clinical medication reconciliation role. Again, don't limit yourself. Sometimes we can be our worst enemies, thinking that we don't have the skills or we can't make that jump. And enthusiasm for a position, excitement to learn, kindness, communication skills, as Kurt showed, that can outweigh so much of a lack of experience in a certain area.
Yeah, what's nice too about Kim is that she just had that community background, and then she had her bachelor's. She didn't even have her
That's
farm.
right.
And so it's like overcoming her self-doubt. And anyways, yeah, we're so excited about her for that. Anyways, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. That was very informative. Thank you for going over that. I know there's so much more that like you could probably speak on that for days. So
Totally.
thank you so much. That was awesome. So now I'm just gonna just jump from here and then just talk a little bit about just the framework, the process to, we go back to our map. We're over here at the starting point. We want to get hired. So Rachel did an awesome job of just explaining some of the different paths that are available. But even now, it's probably trying to figure out which path is right for you is still probably a difficult question to answer. And just some questions to be thinking about is, so which of these roles appeal to you? So again, Rachel covered a lot of them. And then also, yeah, really thinking about what are all those transferable skills that you have that could then be applied to those other type of positions. And again, like from the beginning, talked a lot about just how you don't have to have the background, that specific background experience, but as long as you have the transferable skills, there's going to be a lot of really good opportunities and doors available for you. And then so getting into, so what opportunities fit your background and your experience. And so now I'll just briefly talk a little bit about Career Path RX. So you definitely, so we talked about it a couple of times. You probably got an email or two about it. But if you haven't had a chance, definitely make sure you do join Career Path RX. It's 100% free. It's something that we're constantly updating with new tools and resources. And what's really neat about Career Path RX is that we have we call it the Career Pivot Report. And so that's basically you put in your information, like your background, and then what happens is you'll get a report that will generate up to 10 different non-retail or community-based positions that you may be qualified for. And it's supposed to really just to give you a better sense, better idea of what's possible for you. But also more so in Career Path RX, we have a lot more detailed information on all those industry paths, all those non-traditional paths, all those remote roles, got trainings. We have a lot of other really neat things that we'll be rolling out there too. So anyway, so definitely make sure you do access that. And we'll be following up with you on it with an email with the access information so that you do have that information so you can get in there and take advantage of all those free tools and resources. And so with that, so the idea really behind Career Path RX is to help you figure this out. So really figure out, okay, here's really what I'm most interested in. So you get clear on that very first step so that then you could start building out all these other steps. So then you could start building out your resume for that MSL job, the cover letter. You could orient your LinkedIn for MSL positions and really go through the whole journey. And then for us, like the truth though, is that there's actually a lot more than that. So even if So when we look at building out a resume, I wish it was like that easy where it's just, yeah, build a resume or cover letter. But what we counted, there's like over 160 different actions that you need to take for your job search. So from all the steps in building out your resume, your cover letter, and I found this funny little image here, but it can seem a little bit overwhelming. And here at Pharmacy Career Coach, that is really what we try to do is like, how can we make it easier for pharmacists to just get to get hired with the job that they really want, so they don't, have to mess with all this stuff. And so that's why, so just really quickly want to tell you about a really special program that we have here where we essentially do everything for you. And so the first thing that we do is, this is where we work with you. We help you pinpoint your ideal roles. From there, we match you with a mentor, just like Rachel, one of our amazing mentors on our team. So you're matched with the mentor to really help guide you through this whole process. But the good news, or even better news, is that our team actually handles everything for you. So we've talked a lot about all the little things that you have to do to really have the best opportunity of getting hired. And so with this program, we literally do everything for you. So we actually manage your networking for you. So we do your job search for you. So we're finding the jobs for you. We actually apply for you. We create all the different resumes and cover letters. So literally everything. The only thing that you really have to do is prepare for your interviews. So, and that would be, in this case, be like working with Rachel, just making sure that, okay, I have this MSL interview in 2 days. I want to make sure I'm fully prepared for it. So instead of spending all that time on the job search, which is definitely a full-time job in itself, you let us take care of it for you. So that's what it is. And so this is all the stuff that we do. So there's just a lot of things that are involved in this. But yeah, so it's the coaching, you do get access to a lot of different training resources and things like that you also get email support too. In addition to having a mentor, we support you via email. And then we have what we call our career concierge. So they're the person that's out there looking for jobs for you, unadvertised jobs, advertised jobs. They're going to be scouring the internet, trying to find the right jobs for you. But anyway, so this is everything that's included in that particular program. And of course, you're in this program until you get hired. So we're supporting you until you get hired, until you get the job that you really want. And yeah, the nice thing is that it's literally just, 2 things on your to-do list. I got to meet with my mentor, my coach, and then I just got to focus on preparing for your interviews. And we're going to be taking care of all these other things. It's just, for us, it's just about making it easier for you to actually get the job you want. Because again, we just know your career, your job is just so important. And really, so it just means, you don't have to apply. You wouldn't be applying. We're going to do it all for you. There's no guessing on what you need to do as far as like next steps in your job searching process. Like we have you covered there. And don't have to worry about creating your resumes or your cover letters. You don't have to spend any of your time on your lunch breaks or on your weekends looking for jobs, because we do that for you. When you do get your job offer, this is where we help you negotiate that offer. So usually we're helping our clients get 5, 10. We've had someone get, I think it was like $20,000 more on their offer. So we're going to help you with that as well. And then also the networking. So networking, we talked a lot about, is like very important for your job search. And so again, that's where we handle all that for you. So we literally manage your LinkedIn network for you. We're on there generating job leads. So it's great. So bottom line is that, it's really an automated job search, is like, that's our goal, is giving you all the support you need. So with that, we want to thank you. We're still not done, but just taking a second here, is that if you are interested in learning more about that, we want to invite you to set up a call with us. But we want you to set up a call with us anyways, because clearly there's a lot of content that we've covered today. But yeah, please set up a call with us, and then we can definitely answer all questions that you have from this presentation, answer any questions you have about trying to figure out which career path or roles may be best suited for you. And like I said, if you're interested in exploring that program, the Elite Coaching Program, let us know. It's something where it takes a lot of time and resources for us. So we currently have like 9 spots open. But anyways, if you go to this link here, so bit.ly/get hired, get schedule a call and talk to us over there about that. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Mike.
All righty. And I actually put that link in the chat. So if you feel like it's hard to type out, you can just go ahead and click on it. But yeah, so we really appreciate all the questions that poured in. We handpicked a couple that came through. I was gonna toss these up to Rachel here, but our very first question was from Mark H. I'm not sure if he's here or not, but if he is, we appreciate it. And he said, I am currently a specialty pharmacist with experience in chronic inflammatory diseases, Hep C, HIV, and transplant. I've always been interested in a career in industry after pharmacy school, but was never able to get my foot in the door. Is it too late for me?
Yes, Mark, don't try. No, just kidding, just kidding.
You can't say that, Rachel.
I'm kidding. It isn't too late for anyone. I can't promise anybody who is on this call, please hear me when I say it is not too late to do anything, make any pivot. Specifically to this question, just in case Mark is on this call, I will say that immunology is a really growing area, especially with the advance in biologics. So having a background, you sit there and watch the commercials that come on TV. It's every mAb you could ever think of. I'm just not even sure how many more they could come up with, but it's definitely, I think that the bigger thing to generalize this to everybody is that if you have interest in certain areas and can show your experience in that area, as especially in industry, they want somebody who is really passionate about a therapeutic area. So they don't really want the generalist. They don't want, if you think every pharmacist is capable of learning anything, why would you stand out? And it's really the person that's passionate about that therapeutic area is the person they're going to gravitate towards. If you have this experience and you are passionate about it, that can translate to so many different industry positions. It's a really hot area right now, actually.
Excellent. So never too late. All right. So then from Sal, he submitted the question, although my expertise is retail, I would like to explore different avenues. I need help in narrowing my choices and finding opportunities.
I think different avenues is a very broad area, Sal, but I will say that one thing is that I work on with my clients is really, again, being honest about what kind of job you want. Sometimes you drive meaning, all of us drive meaning from different things. And if you drive meaning, like I love checking a block. I love checking boxes off. That is the Virgo in me. And I love it. And if you're that personality and you like having a queue in front of you and you love seeing that queue disappear as you work on it, then like that is what drives meaning for you. So I think sometimes people think that meaning has to be like this totally altruistic, I'm helping everybody. You are helping. If you weren't doing those orders, who would be doing them? If you were short-staffed, that company was short-staffed, that patient would have to wait for their medication. So never minimize what drives meaning. So I think one of the things that I do with my clients is really try to figure out, what do you derive meaning? And sometimes meaning at this point in a career change is having a better work-life balance so that you can get more meaning in your personal life. Having those honest conversations is where I start with clients to find out, help remove any shame they might have about what they want to do for their career.
Perfect. And then Francesca submitted, how do you find relevant networking contacts?
Emphasis on relevant there for sure, because there's a lot of people on the internet that will want to waste your time. So your time is valuable. So you don't want to get hung up in that. But finding relevant networking contacts, first you can start with professional societies and see who follows those societies. You can also, if you already know, if I say relevant, then I would think you actually have a sense of maybe what the kind of job you want. Then it's a matter of reaching out to people in that area. You'd be shocked at how willing people are to talk to strangers in our profession, because we all have a kindred spirit of being pharmacists. When I was looking to transition to an MSL role, I reached out to so many MSLs on LinkedIn, and some of them were connections of people that I knew. Some of them weren't. They just were people that worked at companies that I was interested in. And nobody said no. Every single person I reached out to, if they responded, if they were somebody that used their LinkedIn regularly enough to get my message, they were willing to have that conversation. And then in that conversation, you can say, is there anyone else you would recommend that I talk to? So I personally am a big advocate of LinkedIn. I got my job through networking on LinkedIn. I can't speak more highly of it. So I went from an eye roller of LinkedIn to, oh my gosh, LinkedIn is where it's at. So it does take some time though to put, you do have to, like they said, it can feel like a full-time job sometimes. And if you can have somebody's help, somebody at PCC to help you narrow that, because it can feel daunting. And sometimes it feels really awkward reaching out to people you don't know. And we really are good at helping bridge that gap.
Perfect. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I think that answers all the questions. If anyone else has questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can easily reach us at support@pharmacycareercoach.com.
And I know we covered a lot today, so appreciate you joining us. We talked all about how you can stand out in your job search, the exact strategies we've used to help over 2,500 pharmacists and counting find their fulfilling careers. So now it really is your turn. If you're serious about getting hired, you want a role that aligns with your goals, with your lifestyle, then let's set up a time to talk. So we do have personalized strategy sessions. These are free, so we can explore every step of the way with you. You just have to go over to bit.ly/get hired in pharmacy. Again, that's bit.ly/get hired in pharmacy. We're going to take time, get to know you better, talk further about your goals, further about what challenges you're having. And then if we can help you reach your goals, we'd love to explore ways that we can help you do that as quickly as possible. So with that, yeah, go to bit.ly/get hired in pharmacy. Myself, our team, we really appreciate you being here, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. Have a great day.